So when I planned out this lineup, I had no idea how well some of these dates would end up lining up on this setup of movie reviews. Specifically, this week, the movie I want to cover got dropped on HBO and Netflix the same day, and when I watched it, it was the number 5 movie on Netflix in the US. I had no idea how many people were waiting to rewatch this, what they call a train wreck of a movie, which is the 2011 Green Lantern film. It's celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. Now, welcome back to Geekborn, and this is the Barely Relevant series where we follow an actor or actress from one project to the next, pick another actor, and continue on. But we followed Tamara Morrison last week in the Moana series, where he voiced the chief, of course, and now to the, panned, because it really was panned at the time, the Green Lantern movie starring Ryan Reynolds, where Tamara played Abin Sur, the alien that ends up giving Hal Jordan his ring. Now, I'm usually a fan of hated films, but it's been a while since I've seen this one, so I'm going to have to give it a watch before I go through and tell you how much I might have enjoyed it. So we start with some narration from one of the Lanterns, telling us about the origin of the Green Lanterns and how the Guardians are the ones who created them, and the villain Parallax. Not the origin quite yet of Parallax, that does happen a little bit later, but we learn that Parallax is a thing that was fought at one point. Some aliens fall into a hole, and we see Parallax become awakened, and he consumes their fear and ends up escaping. Abin Sur is the first Lantern that we get to see on screen, and we learn quickly that this film has an all-star cast that makes it really unfortunate that it couldn't have been a better film or done better at the box office with critics and done more in sequels.
That's no good.
Since Abin Sur is the one who trapped Parallax, he is hunted down by Parallax. Abin Sur ends up getting out of there just in time in an escape pod. We see Ryan Reynolds then. He's with a random woman that he just wakes up in bed with, but he starts rushing because, of course, he's late. Then we get one of the best things that came out of this movie. Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. Hal Jordan is a pilot. Like I said, he's late, and of course, he's an asshole. But he's flying against some AI drone jet, aircraft things, and he goes through, he sacrifices his partner. Then he causes these drones to stall. Of course, when he stalls as well, he has some PTSD flashbacks and of the time that his father ends up crashing in an experimental plane. But, of course, he beats the drones, wasn't supposed to do that. Gets suspended. Then we go through, we see Abin Sur, who crashed on Earth. He sends his ring to find someone. Hal shows up to a birthday party for his nephew. His family, of course, is worried because they saw the news. He has a touching moment with his nephew, and he leaves his nephew's room, and he messes with a car track, launches the car right off the track, which is a tiny bit of foreshadowing for a scene that ends up happening later, which seems a bit lame. They even talk about how lame it kind of is, but it's still cool with this little bit of foreshadowing, make it a little bit better. As he leaves the party, Hal is put in a green bubble by the ring and taken by Abin Sur. He gets the ring and the lantern from Abin Sur, and then Abin Sur dies. The first person he calls, of course, is his friend, Tom, who's played by Taika Waititi. He picks up Hal, and they drive off as the government ends up showing up. Mark Strong is an amazing casting for Sinestro. I think it is probably the best casting you could have done. We see him having a meeting with the Guardians, though, and we see the Guardians are the ones that govern and created the Lanterns. Mark Strong is also the actor we are following this week, so if you stick around till the end of the video, I'll tell you exactly what we will be doing in that video. He sets out to rally up some Lanterns to fight Parallax, and we get some weird shady government guys who end up picking up a guy named Dr. Hammond and take him to a secret facility. That's when Dr. Hammond ends up being greeted by Amanda Waller, and she shows him the body of Abin Sur. Hammond is apparently a xenobiologist, but they've never seen any aliens on Earth before, so it's kind of odd, but he ends up helping with the autopsy while Hal is figuring out the lantern. As he activates the lantern, part of Parallax in Abinsur's wound attaches itself to Hammond. We get a cute little scene of Blake and Ryan. They're together at a bar. We learn that they used to be together, in the context of the film. But she ends up questioning how the flight went, and he ends up leaving because he doesn't want to be questioned about the PTSD and all that stuff. He doesn't want to face up to his fears. He ends up going outside and he gets jumped by some guys who got fired because of the flight that he had. They go through and leave, or try to leave, but he eggs them on and he accidentally punches them with the Green Lantern fist powers, whatever, and then he is taken to Oa. Hammond at the same time is going through some odd changes. 40 minutes of lead up to the superhero stuff that's going on. I'm sure they were hoping for a franchise from the Green Lantern. Also, where the biggest flaw starts to show is that all the Green Lantern powers, the aliens, the world that they're on, Oa itself, all of that is very CGI heavy. It looks kind of cartoony, and sadly, Hal's suit is one of the worst effects compared to some of the even fully CGI creatures that look like they might have put a little more time into. It has to be a hard time as an actor when so much of it is CG, but it's also probably a lot of fun. You get to, work around a lot of different things. All of the Lanterns end up meeting up at this time, and they find a team to fight against Parallax. We see plenty of classic Green Lantern characters. They're part of the Corps, and they're usually voiced by some great actors. It looks like they make Ryan's suit glow and make more effects going on his suit, maybe to make him stand out a little bit more. But unfortunately, that doesn't help it look any better when compared to some of the other CGI that we've got going on. Hal ends up getting his ass kicked by Sinestro, and then he ends up just wanting to give up and leave. We skip over to Hammond again, who is now teaching at a high school, at a class, I assume, that he must teach. And he starts hearing some of the kids complain about how boring he is while his back's turned. But it turns out he's reading their minds. He throws one of the kids out of the seat with some telekinesis powers. He leaves. Later, he takes a sample, and he sees some of the cells are changing. It turns out that his dad is the senator that we end up meeting at the beginning of the movie at the flight test, and his father helped him into the alien autopsy and is trying to help him advance even farther, but he really doesn't want it. He wants to work for it and not just be handed things. We see the Lanterns attack Parallax, but it's not working very well. Parallax heads towards Oa because that's when we find out that one of the Guardians became Parallax. And that's why Parallax has a similar head design that the Guardians. The Guardians, of course, he didn't intend to become evil. He was overtaken by fear, and that ended up manifesting this weird power, and he ended up becoming this mysterious evil being. Sinestro thinks that the only way to fight this is to forge a yellow ring so they can fight fear with fear. We see Hal next at this big party celebrating a contract that they got with the drones, and we see that Hammond and Hal actually know each other. They must have known each other for a long time. Then we see Hammond and Carol. They've known each other for a long time as well. You think they all three grew up together. And he brings up the alien autopsy just loud enough for his father to hear, and he comes over. His father plays it off as some sci-fi story. The senator ends up leaving in a helicopter, and his son causes it to crash. Hal jumps in at the last minute to stop the poorly CGI'd helicopter from hurting anyone by turning it into a car and sending it on a track. This, of course, being that foreshadowed scene, kinda lame, that we talked about earlier. Of course, he ends up saving Carol. Hammond goes home. He goes through some weird changes when he gets home. Hal is woken up by Taika Waititi, who knows he is the hero, of course, because he already knows about all the stuff. He was there and picked him up. So, to give the movie some credit, I really enjoy the semi-meta conversations these two have, the little chats. And Taika mentions how lame the track is, especially being his first superhero appearance. Taika says a line about how heroes get the girl, so Hal, of course, goes and visits Carol as a Green Lantern. But when she gets close, she recognizes him instantly. It's just a little domino mask over his face. Like, what do you think is going to happen? Of course, he explains everything, and she convinces him that he should go back and give it another try, since she tells him that she quit. Hammond was being a creep. Obviously, he was sitting in a car. He saw the whole thing, their whole chat. He knows that he's Green Lantern, all that fun stuff. His father finds that he's mutated and claims that he wants to help him, but he's never felt better, apparently. Hammond uses his telekinetic powers to escape and trap his father. Hal then breaks into the facility because the ring notified him of the threat. And then Hal and Hammond just beat the crap out of each other. Hammond goes through, throws his dad over, burns him to a crisp. Awful. Then Hal launches Hammond across the room. Hal ends up leaving. He explains everything to Tom and Carol. Carol gives him a pep talk and then goes off. Hammond at this time is being tasked with killing Hal, and the Guardians craft a yellow ring at this time. Hal gets a warning that Parallax is moving in towards Earth. Hammond somehow gets Carol and gets her trapped. Hal gives up the ring so we can save Carol, but he doesn't tell Hammond the ring has to choose you. He just lets him think that the ring, is his, and then he gets his ring back. Blake and Ryan have this cliche little talk about, of course, he may not make it back, and he heads off to fight or, probably outthink Parallax, kind of like he did with the dogfights at the beginning of the movie. But the only thing that's not CGI in this whole huge fight scene is Ryan Reynolds' head for the most part. And it's mostly his face, most of his face anyway, because he's got the domino mask on. Hal tricks Parallax into flying too close to the sun, and he gets pulled in by the gravity. Hal is saved by Sinestro from the same fate, because he was falling into the gravitational pull as well. Sinestro gives a speech about Hal on Oa, and all the Lanterns cheer because he defeated Parallax. It seems like a lot of sequel bait going on. We see Hal, he comes back to Earth to see Carol and explain that he may be gone for a while. They have a passionate kiss that led to this 10-year strong relationship between Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. They're so wholesome, I love it. Hal ends up flying off. We get a little bit more narration from the Lantern from the beginning of the movie. We do get the ultimate teaser / sequel bait for a sequel for this film, and that is the end credit scene where we see Mark Strong as Sinestro go through, take the yellow ring, put it on, and we see his suit turn into a yellow Lantern suit, and he looks exactly like his comic book counterpart in the evil Sinestro Corps. And I think that it is very upsetting that we do not get to see that film. We will probably never get to see Mark Strong in that role. It's infuriating. But that was 2011's Green Lantern. Like a lot of movies, it has its own faults. The biggest one on this one is leaning so heavy on the CGI. Honestly, I think if it looked better, it would have been great. And you could say it was only 2011, but the same year we had Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the third Transformers film, and the Real Steel movie. They all came out that year, and all three films, especially Planet of the Apes, had great CGI work. The movie itself, I think, is a lot of fun. I'm glad that I got to go through and watch it again. I'm glad it's getting some views on HBO Max and Netflix, that it's out there. We'll be following Mark Strong from this onto a small flick from 2007 called Stardust, which seems to have a great cast, but I don't think I've ever seen it. So that's going to be a first for the series. We'll catch you in the next one. Remember, some of us are born geeky. You have a good one.